Okay, here we have 9 questions review from 6.1 to 6.5. We have various questions all spanning the range of all the different questions we've worked on so far. In our first question, it asks us to draw 3/5 times 2. So again, if you have 3/5 and you shade it in, if you double it, you need to understand that multiplying by 2 simply means you take this and you double it. There's 2 of them. And then the question you ask yourself, if you take 3/5 and double it, how many fifths do you have? We have 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, 6/5. So the answer, without actually using any kind of algorithm, is 6/5. But we all know that 2 is really 2 over 1, isn't it? And if we wanted to multiply the numerators, we would have got 6. And if we multiply the denominators, we would have got 5, which means your final answer is 1 and 1/5. Your second question says take 2/3 and divide it by 3. So again, I'm going to draw 2/3. And I'm going to cut it into 3 parts. This is for me, this is for Dominic, and this is for Calvin. If I take 2/3 and divide it between 3 people, each person will receive 2 parts out of 9. 2 parts out of 9. So your answer is 2/9. Draw for this one. You take 3/4 of 2/3. So counterintuitively, the first fraction we have to draw is 2/3. Because if I think about what this says, it says 3/4 of 2/3, which means I need to start with 2/3 and take 3/4 of it. This is a quarter, this is another quarter, and this is another quarter. So altogether, that represents 3/4 of oh, heavens to Betsy. 3/4 of 2/3, which means the denominator was 3, but now it's 12, and I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/12. Right? Of course, if we follow that basic algorithm and multiplied our numerators and our denominators, we would have gotten 6/12 as well, which actually represents in lowest terms 1/2. Our next question asks us to draw 1 1/4 times 1 2/3. For our drawing for this, we're using the area model. So this distance from here to here is 1, and this smaller distance is 1/4. This is 1 2/3. And actually, I have that backwards. The longer side should have been the 1 2/3, but it doesn't really matter. The sum of A, B, C, and D will represent the product of 1 1/4 and 1 2/3. So the area of A is just a 1 by 1. B is 1 by 1/4, which is 1/4. C is 1 times 2/3, which is 2/3. And D is 1/4 times 2/3, 1/4 times 2/3, which is 2/12, which in lowest terms is 1/6. Right? Or 2/12. 2/12 is fine if you add it in there. Once you have that, you're going to add them all together. Bring your whole number down. Don't worry about it. Common denominator is 6. When you add all those up, how many? Oh, I don't have 6. 6 is not your common denominator. Who said 6? Who said 6 was the common denominator? 12 is your common denominator. What kind of fool do you take me for? When you add your numerators, what do you get? 13/12, which is 1 1/12. Add that to your 1. And your final answer is 2 1/12. Of course, we already learned how to double check our answer. Just change them both into improper. When you multiply your numerators, you get 25 over 12, which represents 2 1/12. This says don't draw it, solve it. This is a 6-1 question. We now know that 4 is really a fraction of 4 over 1. When I multiply my numerators and multiply my denominators, I end up with 12 over 8, which is 1 4/8, which is 1 1/2. World's worst 2. When I divide by 4, I also have to think of 4 as being 4 over 1 because I'm going to keep my first fraction, change to multiplication, and the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. So I'm really going to solve this division by multiplication. Multiply my numerators, I get 3. Multiply my denominators, I get 32. And my answer is 3/32. 32s. Now here, an intelligent person would not get 48 over 136. What would they do instead? Cross reduce. And the easiest place to cross reduce is this 16 over 8. And Gavin, what would 16 over 8 reduce to? 2 over 1. Because both 16 and 8 are divisible by 8, so you can reduce it down to 2 over 1. Therefore, your final answer is 6 over 17. Now, if you were foolish enough to actually get 48 over 136, is that right? You'd have to reduce that down considerably, but eventually you would reduce that down to 6 over 17. Without modeling, when you multiply two mixed fractions, change them to improper. Check for cross reduction. Doesn't happen. So 77 over 8 is your final answer, which is 9 and 5/8 as a mixed fraction. Did I do it wrong? Where did I make a mistake again? 9 times 8 is what? Oh, yes. So that should have been 20 here, right? My fault, which is 3 and 17/20ths. My bad. And your last question says, what's 1.5 divided by 2 and 1/5? Change them to improper. Change it to multiplication by the reciprocal of the second fraction. And you get 15 over 22 as your final answer. Is that right? Perfect.